For the day is Professor AnanthaKrishna. Again, it will be his topic. He is going to present his course material is going to present his Theory of Architecture 1. Again, page 49 in the document.
Please understand, not just talking about something without any first-hand experience. Expertise is always first-hand experience. Otherwise, it becomes just a free talk. It is a speculation. I'm sorry. I don't believe in speculation. I believe in an expertise which is obtained over a period of time by teaching a given subject to a set of students. So you know what is the feedback, what is the experience, and also any subject. Please understand, especially the practitioners. Please understand, you have to look at any subject in the overall perspective. For example, you know, in one semester, which is very short, which is not really in our hands, you cannot expect 4 or 5 subjects where everything is dumped on that fellow. For example, the teachers who are here will understand that if the fellow has architectural design, building construction and interior design, there is a huge problem. Because how much work one can do in a semester is a thing which some people are not aware. So kindly, please consult the teachers who have the first-hand experience. Otherwise, I can say anything, I can trash anything. Sorry, I will not do it. It is mere speculation. And I can also speculate thousands of things without knowing anything. So the expertise, I would like to appeal to my chairman, is not a mere qualification. Expertise is first-hand experience of teaching a given subject several times, finding out the feedback and then refining it and learning how that subject is taught in other places, or what are the difficulties of following other methods. So one requires tremendous knowledge before we propose anything. That is my first point. Now let me come to, now that I'm sorry I had to say that because I heard something about what Vijay Narnapatti said. I'm sorry, that cannot be done. It is only speculation. Now, let me express my views. That is the problem. Where is the expertise? And without the expertise, sorry, it is of no use. There are students, real students. We have to deal with them. We understand what are the difficulties. The expertise is always first hand. There is no substitute for that, my dear friend. So this theory of architecture 1 is a very important subject because the core of our whole program, which is undoubtedly architectural design, the theoretical basis, the grounding, the vocabulary comes from the theory of architecture, or you call it theory of design. So therefore, even though it is considered as a theoretical subject, its inputs to design are quite substantial, and therefore the interest we are able to generate in the mind of the student about this subject, the competence of the teacher, they are very critical factors. And here I would like to state that delivery is everything. And this, I have talked to many of my teacher colleagues, and I have been telling, see, you can make any syllabus. And I remember some of the engineering people who have no clue of anything. They tell me, and I bash them up. They said, we are now trying to follow the Harvard syllabus. I said, go to hell. Without knowing what is that Harvard syllabus, what is the American context, what type of students are you getting. You simply want to borrow syllabus from somewhere and you think it will work here. Sorry, See, this is the mindset. This is the mindset, and especially for architecture, I would like to say that architecture is culture based. Please don't forget that. It is not engineering where you can just borrow it, or medical science. The latest technology of heart surgery, you can simply use it here because the human body is the same. Architecture is not like that. It is context based. You can't copy what is going on in some other part of the country just like that. So that also has to be kept in mind when you talk about architecture syllabus. You can't copy something from Harvard directly without.
But sir, this is copied from there.
What are the objectives of teaching this subject, theory of architecture? The first objective is to grasp the grammar of architectural aesthetics. All of you are aware that aesthetics is a soft skill and design is something where there is no magical formula which leads you from the starting point to the ending point, and there are varieties of ways of approaching design, etc. So because of that, what happens is this subject is very critical in enlightening a student who understands the technical terms that are used to understand aesthetics. So the core of aesthetics, I would say, the inputs on the core of aesthetics, the understanding of aesthetics is provided by this subject. So grasp the grammar of architectural aesthetics is very important, especially because when a student is talking to another student, there has to be some technical content in that discussion. Similarly, when the student is talking to a teacher, there has to be some technical content. I'll give you a simple parallel. You see, the parallel is when doctors talk to each other, there is a technicality to the discussion among themselves. And among architects, similar approach is required. Otherwise, what happens is we resort to highly general talk, which is not going to help. So the main point is, so the ability to talk to another architect of the same field in technical terms is something which this subject is supposed to provide. To articulate design ideas to oneself and to others. See, when they start designing from the first year, you require ideas and the ideas will have to flow. So what you require will be ideas, understanding simple things like proportion, scale. It's not copied from Harvard. I have never seen the Harvard syllabus. Please keep quiet. I'm too big for you. You don't know anything. Please keep quiet.
Please, I think, sir, we'll just.
Why are you calling such people to this program?
I am sorry, I did not mean that.
Please.
I did not mean that.
Please, we'll just keep it to topic. We are just keeping ideas. We are not discussing personalities here. We'll keep it.
Okay.
Yes, it doesn't matter. I mean, we are not talking about personalities.
Yes.
Please.
To articulate the design ideas to oneself and to others, the ability to think, the ability to articulate ideas about architecture, the subject will help. For example, the idea of scale, simple things. Unless you know what is a scale, they struggle. So therefore, that is the second objective. The third objective is to get ideas which assist in. Now, this is a very important objective because the third objective has a very important bearing directly on design. So when the student is actually engaged in the design studios, one requires some kind of a support. And all of you are aware, especially the teachers, when you teach the students in the studio, the difficulty is how to start. It's a very funny situation all of us encounter. The student is lost, doesn't know how to put things together. Otherwise, this strange thing happens, where each room is put separately, and then just like that bubble diagram, you connect it with corridors. So that is a complete loss of idea how to bring the things together, how to structure the plan. So that is, to my mind, the direct utility of this subject. Next. Now I will come to the outline. All these are all from my own experience, reading. First of all, I think the fundamental aspect is the meaning of theory in science and technology. What they do, the engineering people, the meaning of theory is very grand, as you are aware. Unfortunately, the meaning of theory in architecture is very different. So I think we should spend a little time on that. Theory in science and theory in architecture. What are the differences? That is an important issue which has to be discussed. Differences and roles, viewpoints on the relationship between theory and practice in architecture. This is a huge issue. What is the relationship between theory and practice in architecture? Because in the sciences and in engineering, that relationship is very clear. You have the theory first and then comes the practice. Without theory, you are nowhere in the science and engineering. Unfortunately, in architecture, it is not necessarily like that. It's a very difficult situation in architecture. So we have to spend a little time explaining that. Then we can get on to the principles of architectural composition, basically which are, you can call them prescriptions for action. As I said earlier, it is something which can be applied directly, a principle. For example, we say any building should have unity. Now what exactly is that? How has it been done? By different architects, and we can give the examples. So contrast, and these are all basically technical terms. What you need to do is to, basically the teacher will have to expound the principles. My point is that the teacher should have a very good understanding of each one of the principles himself, and then each principle will have to be illustrated with examples taken both from the Indian context and in the foreign context. So that is what is required. So the understanding will be very good. I will come to the point of giving assignments. Very well. The question is overall picture. What is it that you can do? How do you fit this subject as a slot in the overall picture? Because if each one of the subjects is so much based on assignments, we will get lost because the student will not be able to cope. Next. Week 2 is proportion and scale. As you are all aware that proportion and scale are very strongly related. There are also differences. There are very well defined ideas about both proportion and scale. We'll talk about monumental scale or super scale, and how you can have both monumental scale and human scale at the same time. What are the illustrations? So that is what you can do. Balance and strength in the next week. What is symmetry and how is it different from balance? The concept of strength. Which type of functional contexts these principles are relevant. You cannot apply all these principles in all buildings. For example, the concept of strength is more suitable in certain types of buildings, where it is necessary to project that image to the observer. So all that has to be instructed. Accentuation and restraint with examples, as I said, from both Indian and other. We can also take from historical contexts and contemporary contexts. You can attend to that also. Because the more variety that you are able to give as examples, the better the understanding will be on the part of the student. Vitality and repose. Organizing principles of architectural composition. Symmetry and asymmetry are opposite things, and historically we have had experiences of both, maybe in terms of style or otherwise. So the whole thing can be explained.
12, week 7.
Then organizing, the last segment, the last one. Week number 6, organizing principles of architectural composition. See, all these principles, organizing principles, are useful in the structuring of the plan. In that sense, they have a more direct bearing on the design. Next. So we gauge spatial organizations of masses. So historically and in contemporary situations, what are the right examples for different ways in which the plan is structured? Then aesthetic properties and materials play such an important role in aesthetics. It is a very important aspect. So how different architects have been able to exploit different materials for aesthetic purposes, and aesthetic and structural purposes are very closely related. So what is the strength in terms of structure has an implication for architecture. Next. Concept of style, because all of us talk about style, but then there is a lot of meaning to it. What is the origin of style in literature? Origin of style in architecture has been very recent. What are the causes for that? How it first started in the other disciplines and then came to architecture? How do you classify styles, on what basis? Then 3 different types of styles, because you want to talk about the style of an individual architect, the style of architects in a limited geographical area which have not survived for a long time, and then the general concept of style which is related to culture of people. So all the 3 types we can expound. Evolution of styles, because any style will have the usual curve of starting, reaching its peak or maturation, and then it will go. So in fact, in one way you can understand style as a aesthetic preference of a culture at a certain point of time. So as the time changes, the aesthetic preferences of the people will also change. So that kind of an idea can be expounded. Next. Teaching methodology. First of all, voracious reading on the part of the teacher. See, this subject to my mind requires very heavy reading. And hard reading, and the ability to understand, to collate, and mainly to cross-refer. Very important, because architectural ideas are not limited to architectural issues only. We can bring about ideas to architecture from the other fields. So that to my mind is a very critical thing on the part of the teacher. Voracious reading on the part of a teacher. Very critical. So that requires a certain attitude on the part of the teacher. So you have to see whether that the student, the teacher has that kind of an attitude. Expound each principle with the help of illustrations. And point number 2 is related to point number 1. And assignments one can think of in this subject. What can be done is, there are contemporary examples and live examples are there of architects who are doing works in different cities of Karnataka, because this is related to VTU. So the students can be asked to get the correct illustrations for the right principle, and that can be a part of the assignment. The reference books I have given here, 10 books I have given, and some of them are really very hard reading. For example, some of them are, the first 2 are for the students, but many of the others are meant for teachers. It's heavy reading. Especially this book I will recommend, it is pretty good. Paul Allen Johnson, he quotes variety of authors, and I am really impressed because quotations by variety of architects will give us an insight into the mind and to the way in which the architect thinks. You are all familiar with Broadbent's book, even John Lang's book. Smithy's is a very simple book with lot of illustrations. Robinson's book is a very old book. Many of you will be aware. And Osborne's book, as you can see from the titles, they are directly related to the subject. This book is very difficult to read. The last one, Words and Buildings, a Vocabulary of Modern Architecture. Very hard reading, but I would say it is excellent because the kind of insight and understanding the teacher gets, forget about the student, teacher gets, is really wonderful. So these are the books I recommend. Internal assessment, you can give assignments. I have already given some idea what kind of assignments can be given. I think this will do because we have to keep it in mind, it's a single subject. If you expect something very grand and you think the students will do it like today, I am very sorry. It will never work because you have to look at the entire picture of the semester. So, the teacher's role is also equally important.
Thanks. We have